The dim glow of a single street lamp flickered over the cracked asphalt of the community rec center parking lot. Rain hammered down in sheets, but inside the circle of onlookers, the air was electric. A woman in a crisp black GI, her braid whipping like a battle flag, stood tall with a smirk that could cut glass. "Easy money," she called out, tossing a thick envelope of cash onto the wet ground. "Any man here thinks he can last 3 minutes with me gets it all. Who's first?" No one moved, until a tall black man in a faded hoodie stepped forward, his young daughter clutching his leg, eyes wide with worry. He wasn't built like a fighter. He looked like what he was, a tired single dad trying to make it to payday. The crowd laughed. The woman, Lena, the crusher, Vargas, laughed loudest. But what happened next would change both their lives forever. If you're watching this right now, lean in. This isn't just another fight story. This is about pride, pain, fatherhood, and the kind of strength that doesn't need to roar to be felt. If you love underdog tales that hit you right in the chest, do me a favor, hit that like button right now and subscribe for more real, emotional stories like this. We're building a community of people who believe in second chances and quiet heroes. Let's dive in. Marcus Reeves wiped the rain from his face and gently pried his 8-year-old daughter's fingers from his jeans. "Stay with Miss Carla, baby," he whispered, voice low and steady like it always was when things got hard. Little Aaliyah nodded, her braids swinging, but her eyes shimmered with tears she refused to let fall. She knew money was tight. The rent was late again. Groceries were running on hope and peanut butter sandwiches. Her daddy had promised her a real birthday party this year. Lena Vargas crossed her arms, sizing him up with undisguised contempt. She was a 5-time national taekwondo champion, a black belt who had dismantled men twice her size on the circuit. At 32, she ran the most exclusive dojo in the city, charging premium rates to wealthy clients who loved her no-nonsense attitude. Arrogance wasn't a flaw to Lena, it was armor. After years of being underestimated in a male-dominated sport, she had built a reputation for cruelty in the ring and on social media. Her latest stunt, public challenges offering easy money to locals. Most backed down. The few who didn't left with bruised egos and viral humiliation clips that boosted her brand. "You sure about this, Pops?" Lena sneered, her voice carrying over the rain. "I don't want Child Protective Services on my ass when I send you home in an ambulance." Marcus said nothing. He simply shrugged off his hoodie, revealing a plain black t-shirt stretched over a frame that spoke of disciplined labor rather than gym selfies. There were no flashy muscles, no tattoos screaming for attention. Just quiet power in the set of his shoulders and the calm in his dark eyes. The crowd murmured. Someone whispered, "That's the janitor from the elementary school." The referee, a local gym owner who had seen Lena's previous challenges, stepped between them. 3 minutes. No rules except tap or pass out. Ready? Lena didn't wait for a formal start. She exploded forward with a spinning kick that had ended careers. The crowd gasped. Marcus moved. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't showy. One moment he was standing there, the next he had slipped inside her range, his forearm deflecting the kick with almost bored precision. Lena's eyes widened for a split second, then she was on the ground, swept off her feet by a leg she never saw coming. She rolled up instantly, pride burning hotter than any bruise. "You got lucky," she spat. Marcus still hadn't spoken. He simply waited, breathing steady, eyes locked on hers, not with anger, but with something deeper. Pity? No. Recognition. The next 90 seconds were a masterclass in controlled violence. Lena threw everything at him, combinations that had won her tournaments, feints that tricked black belts, elbows and knees honed by years of pain. Marcus flowed around her like water. He didn't counter with brute force. He used her own momentum against her, redirecting strikes, closing distance when she overextended, and finally, when she lunged with a desperate haymaker, he caught her wrist, spun her into a gentle but unbreakable hold, and took her down to the wet pavement. The referee called it at 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Silence fell over the lot, broken only by the rain. Lena lay there, chest heaving, staring up at the man who had just dismantled her in front of her fans and followers. Humiliation clawed at her throat. She had never been beaten like this. Not ever. Marcus extended a hand to help her up. She slapped it away and stood on her own, grabbing the envelope of cash and shoving it into his chest. "Take your blood money," she hissed, voice cracking despite herself. Then she stormed off into the rain, braid dripping, shoulders rigid with rage and something else, shame she hadn't felt in years. The crowd erupted. Phones came out. But Marcus wasn't celebrating. He tucked the money into his pocket, walked straight to Aaliyah, and lifted her into his arms. "It's okay, baby girl. We good now." What the spectators didn't know, what Lena didn't know, was that Marcus Reeves wasn't just a single dad working 2 jobs to keep the lights on. He was a retired Navy SEAL, 13 years of service that included classified missions in places the news never mentioned. He had left the teams after his wife, Tamara, died in a car accident 2 years earlier, leaving him to raise Aaliyah alone. The grief had nearly broken him. There were nights he sat on the edge of her bed watching her sleep, wondering how he was supposed to be both mother and father while the nightmares from deployment still clawed at him. But SEALs don't quit. Marcus had channeled that same discipline into fatherhood. He worked as a school janitor by day so he could be there for Aaliyah's after-school activities. Nights were spent driving for rideshare and fixing things for neighbors for extra cash. The challenge money? It would cover 3 months of rent, groceries, and the dance classes Aaliyah had been begging for since her mother passed. He never bragged about his past. The tattoos were covered. The medal stayed in a locked box. To the world, he was just Mr. Marcus, quiet, reliable, and always willing to help fix a leaky faucet or coach Little League. Lena didn't sleep that night. She replayed the fight in her head on loop, analyzing every mistake, every moment she had underestimated him. The arrogance that had protected her for so long suddenly felt like chains. She had built her entire identity around being untouchable. What happened when that identity shattered on wet asphalt in front of a single dad? The next morning, her dojo felt different. Students whispered. Social media was blowing up, not with praise for her, but with clips of her defeat. Comments ranged from cruel mockery to calls for her to retire. For the first time in years, Lena Vargas felt small. She spent the day digging. Who was this Marcus Reeves? Public records showed a widower, veteran, honorable discharge. No criminal record. No fight history online. Just a man raising his daughter. Something twisted in her chest, guilt mixed with reluctant respect. 3 days later, she showed up at the elementary school during dismissal, wearing civilian clothes instead of her GI. Aaliyah spotted her first and tugged her father's hand. Marcus's expression didn't change when he saw Lena, but he nodded politely. "Can we talk?" Lena asked, voice quieter than anyone who knew her would expect. They walked to a nearby park while Aaliyah played on the swings within earshot. Lena struggled for words. "I was an ass," she finally said. "I thought you were just another guy looking for easy money. I didn't see you." Marcus sat on the bench, elbows on his knees. Most people don't. He didn't gloat. He didn't lecture. Instead, he listened as Lena, haltingly at first, told her own story. Growing up with a father who was a martial artist but also an abusive drunk. How she had weaponized his training to escape that house and never look back. How every victory since had been proof that she would never be weak again. How pushing people away had become easier than risking closeness. "I turned my pain into power," she said, staring at her hands. "But I think I turned it into poison too." Marcus nodded slowly. I know something about pain. Lost my wife. Almost lost myself. But Aaliyah, she saved me. Every day I choose to be the man she needs, not the man the world tried to make me." Tears slipped down Lena's face. She didn't wipe them away. For once, she let someone see her without the armor. Over the following weeks, an unlikely friendship formed. Lena started volunteering at the school, teaching self-defense classes to kids, including Aaliyah, who took to it with fierce joy. Marcus, in turn, showed her what real discipline looked like, not the flashy kind performed for cameras, but the quiet consistency of showing up for your child even when you're exhausted, scared, and grieving. There were challenges, of course. Lena's ego didn't vanish overnight. She still pushed too hard in training sessions. Marcus called her on it gently but firmly. One evening, after she snapped at a shy student who was struggling, Marcus pulled her aside. "They're not opponents, Lena. They're kids who need to believe in themselves. Same way you needed someone to believe in you once." She argued at first. Then she cried again. Then she went back and apologized to the student, staying late to work with her one-on-one until the girl was beaming with confidence. Marcus faced his own demons. The challenge money helped financially, but old nightmares returned, flashbacks to missions where brothers didn't come home. One night Aaliyah found him on the living room floor, breathing hard, staring at nothing. She crawled into his lap and simply held him, the way he had held her through so many nights missing mommy. Lena showed up the next day with food and no agenda. They sat on the porch while Aaliyah did homework inside. For the first time, Marcus talked about the seals. Not the glory, there wasn't much of that left in his memory, but the weight of it. The choices. The losses. The way he had learned that true strength was protecting what mattered most, even when it meant walking away from the fight. Lena listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said softly, "I thought I was strong because I could break people. You showed me strength is what you build when everything tries to break you." The climax came months later at a regional tournament Lena had organized to raise money for single-parent families. She had invited Marcus, not to fight, but to speak. He refused at first. Public speaking wasn't his thing. But Aaliyah looked up at him with those big trusting eyes and said, "Daddy, you always tell me to be brave. Maybe other daddies need to hear it too." So he stood on that stage in front of hundreds, including skeptical fighters and curious spectators. No uniform. No medals. Just a man in a simple button-down telling his truth. He spoke about fatherhood. About grief. About the kind of warrior who fights invisible battles every single day, bills, loneliness, the fear of failing your child. He talked about how real power isn't in how hard you can hit, but in how consistently you show up. He thanked Lena publicly, not for the fight, but for the growth that came after. Lena, sitting in the front row, cried openly this time. When it was her turn to speak, she took the mic and did something no one expected. She apologized. Not just to Marcus, but to every person she had belittled or dismissed. She announced that half the proceeds from the tournament would go to a new scholarship fund for children of veterans and single parents. And then, with a shaky but determined voice, she invited Marcus to demonstrate basic self-defense techniques with her, side by side, as equals. The crowd went wild. By the end of that year, everything had changed. Marcus used part of the original challenge winnings plus new opportunities that came from his quiet viral moment to start a small community program teaching practical skills to single dads, financial literacy, emotional resilience, basic self-defense. Aaliyah thrived, confident and surrounded by people who loved her. She even started calling Lena Aunt Lena without prompting. Lena closed her high-end dojo and reopened a new one focused on empowerment rather than ego. She still competed, but now her wins were dedicated to causes bigger than herself. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something warmer and more powerful, humility earned through pain and grace. One quiet evening, as the three of them sat on Marcus's porch watching fireflies dance, Aaliyah fell asleep between them. Lena looked over at Marcus. "Thank you," she whispered. "For beating me that night. I needed it." Marcus smiled, the rare, genuine one that reached his eyes. "Thank you for letting me." And so, what began as a story of arrogance and easy money became a testament to the quiet strength of a father, the redemptive power of humility, and the family we find in the most unexpected places. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of your own struggles, your own quiet battles, or the heroes in your life who don't wear capes, please like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their fight matters. And subscribe because there are so many more stories like this waiting to be told. Real people. Real heart. Real change. Remember, the strongest warriors aren't always the loudest. Sometimes they're the ones carrying groceries, wiping tears, and showing up even when the world doesn't see them. Until next time, keep fighting the good fight. The end.